My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. And today's date is, what's today? Today's Saturday, October 30th, 2021. And we are at, which Marriott is this?
Orlando World Center.
Okay, in Orlando, Florida. Okay, and let's see, I did the date, and so, sir, what is your name?
My name is Jason Johnson.
Jason?
Yep.
Okay, where's your paperwork?
It's over here.
Over
by the cooler.
Over,
You're there, almost.
right here,
Yeah.
got it. All right, cool. And what branch of the service were you in, Jason?
I was in the Air Force.
Okay, and when did you, were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted. Yeah.
Okay, and what year was that?
Well, I signed up in 93. I actually entered in January 94.
Okay, and where were you when you enlisted?
Kingsford, Michigan, Upper Michigan.
All right, and what? By the way, what were you doing before you went into service?
I was a high school student.
Uh-huh.
Just wanted to be around airplanes, but didn't have the means to do it with college. So
Were you in ROTC?
I was not. No.
Oh, okay. So instead of going to college, you decided to go into the military.
I did, yeah, and I was on a program back then, I don't know if it still exists, but called Delayed Enlistment, and so I signed up when I was 17.
I remember that.
Yeah, and just to lock in, I wanted F-15 E models, I wanted to be a crew chief on them, and recruiter said in order to guarantee it, I had to do delayed enlistment and lock it in.
Okay,
So-
and I guess that worked out for you okay?
It did, yeah,
Right.
I was a F-15 crew chief.
And what city did you say you were living in?
In Kingsford, Michigan.
Okay, so when you enrolled, okay, when you were accepted by the Air Force, did they put you on a plane, or how did you get to your first duty base?
That was kind of an interesting story. I had to take a Greyhound from my local, from my city, about 30 minutes away, to another Greyhound, which took me to Milwaukee. And I was actually supposed to enlist on the 20th of January, which is my birthday, and we had a big ice storm, and so it got canceled, so it became a big to-do. Anyways, it delayed my enlistment by 4 days. I ended up going in the 24th instead of the 20th.
And what month was that?
January.
Okay, so you went in January, and so where did you go?
Milwaukee first to do the all the MEPS paperwork and everything else, and then from there on down to San Antonio to Lackland.
Okay, and so basic training. How long was your basic training?
I believe it was 6 or 8 weeks. It's been a while.
What were your instructors like?
Firm, but at the end you could absolutely see why they did what they did.
Okay. Anybody get hurt, by the way, while you were in basic training? Did you get hurt?
No.
No? No casualties, huh?
Not that I'm aware of.
That's a good thing. Okay, so after basic training, did you take a break and go home, or did you
Yep.
go to your tech school?
Sure did. I took a week between basic and tech school to go back home, see everybody real quick, and then back down to Shepherd Air Force Base. And
Back down to Shepherd? You'd already been there?
No, I mean, being Texas, Lackland was in Texas, and then so I went back to the Upper Michigan, and then back down to Texas, but this time to Shepherd Air Force Base.
What was your MOS? What was your FSC?
It was F-15 crew chief. I can't remember the numbers on it. Is 2.5 something.
Okay.
I was a maintainer, aircraft maintainer,
Okay.
fighter.
What rank were you by the time you got to the flight line?
I think I had just sewn on E2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. So how long was your tech school?
A little over 3 months.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, so the 12 weeks and tell us about it. What was that? How were your instructors? How was the food, by the way?
It was Air Force food, you know. You get to tech school and you get a little taste of freedom back, you know. And you get to, you know, you kind of get weaned back into leaving the base. You get to the first few weeks of tech school, and you're restricted in your movements, and then you start getting more freedom added in as the school goes along. And instructors were awesome. It was, your first experience in basic training was a little bit hard-nosed and things like that, and then you start, rather than learning Air Force doctrine and things like that, you start learning your career, mine being an F-15 crew chief. So you start getting away from the hard nose of teaching people how to care for each other, and more into how are you going to care for these airplanes. Okay.
So you say you were a crew chief. You were supervisor?
No, that's part of the FSC, or AFSC. My job title was dedicated crew chief, and so once you get to your first base, you're assigned an airplane with other crew chiefs, and then by rank you'd have your dedicated crew chief and then assistant dedicated crew chief below that. So I think by the time I got to my first base, I was third on the side of the jet. So there was 3 of us that were assigned to a particular fighter.
Okay. And which fighter was that anyway?
F-15E models.
Okay.
Strike Eagle.
All right. That's some very intense. What were your duties? What were your duties taking care of maintaining this aircraft?
Honestly, besides being in awe, the first flight, I don't know why I loved airplanes so much. My first flight on an airplane, any airplane, was my ride from Milwaukee to San Antonio, Texas for the Air Force. But airplanes have been in my blood, I guess, since I was little. I just always liked them. Anyway, so getting out of basic training, then on to learning the basic about the airplane and Shepherd, and then finally getting to be around an airplane that I'm now responsible for. It was really awe-inspiring. It was surreal, daily duties, obviously, maintaining, launching, recovering the airplane, any mechanical problems with the airplane. Mm-hmm. It was obviously our team that would correct the issues and work together with production supers and expediters and determine the best course to fix the airplane and then carry it out.
Okay. So after the 12 weeks of training, mm-hmm. and nobody getting hurt,
right?
Where was your next duty base?
So I was off to Lakenheath, England.
Huh.
So with the 494th.
How far away is that from London?
About an hour drive.
North, south, east, or west?
It's north of London.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And how long were you there? How long was that tour?
2 years.
2 years.
Yeah.
Tell us about
it. Great people, and that's the one thing that you'll never forget about the Air Force is the camaraderie. I was single at the time, so I was on base, sleeping at the end of the runway in the barracks. It's just the way the base was laid out. So,
okay.
But with a roommate that's still a great friend today.
Good.
Yeah. He went on to be an electrical engineer, and I'm now an aircraft engineer. So we've both taken what we learned from the Air Force and moved on with it. But it was fun. I mean, the community of maintainers was tight knit. So you'd always rely on each other for help while you're working, fixing airplanes and recovering airplanes. But the weekends and nights were just as fun. You'd go see the sights of England and never, again, this is now barely 6 months into my Air Force career, and
right.
I'm traveling to other countries and
where'd you go?
So I've been to Wales, France, Italy, all over the place. It's just
where else? That's a major question. That's integral part of the interview.
Yeah.
All the countries that you visited while you were there.
Yeah.
Or cities.
Yeah.
You said France. What cities? Paris or?
Paris, and then made my way down to Toulouse and down by Airbus area.
Airbus?
Yeah, this was post, but once I started seeing life past the Air Force, I wanted to start seeing where commercial airplanes are made.
Oh.
And so Toulouse, France is the home of Airbus, one of the big manufacturers. And so I wanted to see that area and get an idea of what was to come.
Okay.
Spent time in Las Vegas, Nevada. Not only that would end up being my next duty assignment, but on TDY with Lake and Heath.
Oh, really?
Bring our jets for exercises, green flag, red flag. And then Tyndall Air Force Base down in Florida. Spent time down there. Hill Air Force Base in Utah. Did exercises. Again, this is all with Lake and Heath with our 494th.
Right.
We'd travel. And then obviously part of my tour at Lake and Heath was deployed to Aviano Air Force Base in support of Operation Denied Flight.
In Italy.
In Italy,
Yeah.
where we were engaged over Bosnia and Herzegovina. I was there for 60 days with that, and we had the Marines and Navy on the airport as well with their F-18s.
What was that like being in Bosnia?
So that's the beauty of being an enlisted guy in the Air Force. You stay back, especially on the fighter side. You stay back, maintain the asset, and we send our officers into the battle. So
Wow.
I didn't see the battle other than, we were staying off base. So, you'd have all the bomb detection and things like that on our transportation just to make sure nothing was coming after us. But
Right.
yeah, for the most part, these were 12-hour days, 7 days a week. Airplanes on alert, just in case they were needed. And our aircraft did drop live ammunition over Bosnia at the time, and so while I didn't have things fired at me, it still you are a part of it.
You're out of harm's way though.
Right.
How many people were in your unit, including the officers that flew? I mean,
Trying to recall, I
less than 100?
I'd say probably near 100.
Okay.
Yeah, I probably.
And were there any casualties?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Right.
All right. And so, yeah, you talked about all these places that you had been. So, what was your experience with the people who lived on the economy?
Like near the bases and things.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's unique because every Air Force base has that local community, and I'd never experienced anything other than the full support and endearment for us being there, and they really wanted to be a part of how do we support you guys on the base and what you're doing.
Cool.
Yeah, it was great. Great.
Okay, so Lake and Heath was 2 years?
It was, yeah.
And what was your next duty base?
Nellis Air Force Base
In
Las Vegas, Nevada.
Okay, and what were you doing there? Same thing?
So I was still an F-15 crew chief.
How long was that tour?
That was my last tour, and so it was just about a year and a half.
Okay.
And so that went from being really a forward operating fighter squadron, and then coming back into a weapons test. And so it sparked my next interest in aircraft, which is to modify airplanes to do things that were, they weren't necessarily designed to do in the first place. So that's what Nellis would do, is we would take an aircraft asset, and how do we leverage it for the next battle? How do we test the next weaponry or modify the airplane avionics to do something different? And so that was really our focus there, is how do we make it better? Right.
Okay. While you were stationed at Las Vegas, where else did you get to travel?
So my travel, I didn't travel much when I got to Nellis. Our mission was strictly, around that base. We did. I happened to be in Nellis during the 50th anniversary of the Air Force in '97, and we had to relocate our aircraft up to Tonopah Test Range. So that was kind of unique. Only hearing, stories of, where the F-117 was built and tested, and then we had to take our airplanes up there just to clear the ramp in Nellis, because that's where the festivities were for the air show, for the 50th anniversary air show of the Air Force separating from the Army Air Corps.
Excuse me.
Yeah. So that was unique, but other than that, I was pretty much staying around Nellis at that time.
Any casualties?
No.
Okay. Do you feel like you had, okay, two questions. Did you have any problems staying in touch with your family the entire time you were in the military?
No, not at all.
And do you feel like you had all of the supplies and equipment that you needed?
I think you always want more.
Mm-hmm.
There's programs, and you see the need for them. When it comes to aircraft maintenance, you can get parts delays and things like that, and you end up doing extra work by cannibalizing one airplane to make another airplane fly, and
right.
So you end up, from a maintainer's standpoint, you end up doing things twice, but you understand why. These are airplane components, so you can't have every spare piece everywhere, and you can't anticipate how they're going to break. So they're just necessary evils. But yeah, of course, you'd like to have a spare everything sitting on the shelf. It's just not practical.
Okay. So you said you maintained some close friendships.
Mm-hmm.
Memorable, moments that really stuck out in your still, that you still think about and carry.
Yeah.
So many years later. By the way, when you got out, did you stay in a reserve?
I did. When I signed up, I was 4 active and 4 inactive.
Okay.
So for the following 4 years after I got out, I was still on an inactive ready reserve status. Mm-hmm. I didn't end up being recalled. It was a program to replace the draft. The need for a draft, and you're just sitting on the sidelines just in case the country would need you again.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So tell me 2 of your most memorable experiences while you were in the service.
Certainly my tour in Italy, with the 494th in Lakenheath. The country itself in Italy is gorgeous. It's still one of my favorite countries today.
Right.
But the 12 on, 12 off, or 12 hours on, 12 hours off, 7 days a week. Big workload, but it really didn't feel that way because everybody was kind of in it together, and so it really strengthened bonds within the unit. It was really my first time seeing as much action as we got to see. Turning the airplanes quickly and making sure everything was ready to go for the next sortie, and but that was honestly really unique.
What does that mean, turning the airplanes quickly?
So the airplanes would go off on a mission.
Right.
We'd recover them, make sure that they were fixed, and then get them right back out. So it's just something we would say in aircraft maintenance is turning them. So they'd land, we turn them around and send them back out.
So I take it that when you separated, you were in Vegas?
I was, yeah.
Okay, so what were you thinking about the final days? What was on your mind?
So it really was that last year of service, whether I wanted to make the Air Force a career or whether I wanted to see what was out there on the civilian side. And at that time, it was really soul searching. I loved the military, didn't necessarily care for some of the command structure. You see the need for it, a chain of command. But some, just because somebody has 2 stripes or 3 stripes doesn't mean they can't have a great idea and aside from a program here or there to reward those kind of ideas, some of that ingenuity can be stifled.
Okay.
Just with a, you know, I'm a tech sergeant, this is what I said to do, so that's what we're going to do. So it really is, that's really ultimately what led me to look outside of the Air Force into the commercial side. So I used my final year in the Air Force to get my FAA certification to work on airplanes, my airframe and power plant license. And so that's the beauty of the Air Force for me. It gave me all that training while I was in to then take that training, do some shorter courses with the FAA to get Air Force terminology and commercial terminology straight in my mind of how you work on airplanes, and then test for my airworthiness or my airframe and power plant license. So it enabled me to get that commercial certification, and I got that basically December, I think, of 93, 97. Yeah, December of 97. So when I left in 98, I had my A&P in my hand and was off to commercial.
A&P?
Yeah, airframe and power plant license for
Okay.
the FAA. And
So who'd you go to work for?
I went to work for a company called Basler Turbo Conversions up in Oshkosh, Wisconsin at that time.
Okay.
So I left Las Vegas, went back to Wisconsin, where we took old C-47 DC-3s. We used to cut them in half and stretch them 40 inches and then lengthen their wings and change their wing tips another 24 inches. Put turboprops on them, take the old radial engines off, and turn them into a more modern aircraft. And they're still in business today. This was back late 90s when I did this, obviously, and they're still in business today.
Okay.
Doing the same thing.
Okay. Oh, did you use your GI Bill for anything?
I didn't, and I guess that would be the one regret. I was starting a family at the time, made all kinds of excuses for why I needed to work and why I couldn't afford to do the schooling at that time, take away from a career. And that's one of the things that I really wish, and so I let it lapse. I paid into the GI Bill.
Right.
But
you didn't use it.
Life got in the way.
Right.
So.
What about for a mortgage?
I do use VA benefits for mortgage.
Okay.
Even still to this day.
Gotcha.
It's fantastic.
And you have your medical, right?
Medical.
Yeah.
I have a 10% disability.
Okay.
For hearing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, was for my allergy. But anyway. So what? You're still with the same company today?
No, actually. I loved converting airplanes. That was a hangar environment, and again, I took that modification experience from Las Vegas, working on the modification and test squadron, out to Basler, where we were modifying an airplane again.
Right.
And really got interested in the engineering side of aviation at that time.
Okay.
And then decided to take that back to Las Vegas for a company called National Airlines. And they were a 757 operator in the late 90s. They were around for almost 4 years. But I went in as a A&P mechanic for them, aircraft mechanic, and left there 3.5 years later, prior to them closing their doors, out of their tech services department.
Right.
And so out of that tech services department, we handled engineering on the aircraft, and then if the normal technicians out on the flight line were having a hard time fixing something, they'd call tech services, and we'd come out, help them get a little deeper into the systems and figure out how to fix something. So after National, in 2002 is when I joined my current company, Omni Air International. And I was really drawn to Omni because, by this time I was out of the Air Force for almost 4 years, maybe a little more than 4 years, and really missed some of that service,
Uh-huh.
miss the service to your country, and didn't miss the command structure still, but wanted to find another way to serve without re-enlisting or going back into the officer corps. And when I found Omni, it you know, as much as 80% of our business can be hauling DoD personnel around the globe on commercial airplanes. We're a craft carrier, and it was really that missing piece of my life. It was, how do you give back and give service to country without enlisting or signing on the dotted line per se? And so Omni was that way for me, and so I went in to their tech services and engineering department there. Actually ran their tech services and engineering department until 2016, and then today I work as a remote engineer for Omni. I work out of my house in Wisconsin, but yeah, it's a great company, and it's being a craft carrier. Obviously, it's an industry partner that the Air Force relies upon when the internal capacity of their airplanes are depleted or they need help. Obviously, removing, obviously in the news nowadays is the big lift out of Afghanistan.
Right.
And we were an industry partner on the commercial side of that.
Mm-hmm.
So, obviously the Air Force went into Afghanistan, took folks out in a just unbelievable effort, over 120,000 folks. And then we went in on the commercial side and took those folks from a safer location than Afghanistan and then brought them back to their final spot to integrate into a normal society. And so if you really think about it, the work that you're doing it has a higher purpose than just selling a plane ticket or the flights, the airplanes that we fix are bringing people to a better life.
Right.
It's giving them hope in something that they really didn't have where they're at. So it provides a meaning to go into work, and
Gotcha.
that's really something I needed.
Did you get any medals or citations?
I'm sure I did. They really didn't mean a whole lot. I mean, to me, I appreciate that folks did that, but I think all of us in the Air Force really didn't do it for the medals. We all have our different reasons for signing up, but mine certainly wasn't the medals. I just wanted to do something bigger than myself. I wanted to do something that meant a little more than going and winning an award or whatever. So
I understand. That's good news. Okay, well, just a few more questions. How did you get along with Officers That Enlisted? I
think I got along well. Certainly if whenever I had an idea that maybe I wanted to implement something or had an idea for something, it was maybe that's where I started my diplomacy skills.
Right.
Learning how the best way to get the end result, which was to get an idea that I believed in through that chain of command. That I was honorably discharged, so I guess that's a success, right? So I didn't make anybody mad enough to change that.
Okay.
So.
Okay, just a couple more questions. Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
I think it just, for me, it strengthened my opinion, in that it's unfortunate that you need a military. It really is, but there's bad folks out there, and I don't have any problems with America defending itself or sticking up for folks that can't defend themselves.
Right.
And as long as the military is used in that fashion and not to conquer the world kind of thing, I think it's a necessary evil, unfortunately. But yeah, if it's doing good, I'm all for it.
Okay, and last question is, how did your service and experiences affect your life?
Everything, honestly. It was the it was the means to an end for me, because I didn't have I grew up in a very low income household, didn't consider student loans or anything back then.
Right.
And so I wanted to work on airplanes. How do I do that without money? And the Air Force was the way for me to do it. And when I enlisted, I had every intention of being a 20 or 30 year Air Force person, and then the experiences that you get when you're in the Air Force it doesn't lock you into, hey, maybe there's something outside of the Air Force that might even be better for me. And so I owe everything to that 4 years. It really settled me down. I was probably on a wrong path, not too mentally, I don't know, had I gone into college, I would have just wasted it.
Okay.
I needed that structure.
The discipline.
Exactly. Yeah,
right.
Exactly. And so that between the discipline and the camaraderie, the life lessons that you get out of those, even 4 years for me, was priceless. It's everything.
You have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, I mean, I appreciate you guys looking out for vets and really taking the time to do this. It means a lot. It really does.
Well, it's been one of the most worthwhile things I've ever been able to do in my life. So
Yeah.
I've met a lot of wonderful people. But anyway, I want to thank you for your service.
Yes, thank you.
And I want to thank you for a great interview.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.